Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. We're talking about Detroit in today's video, bringing out the mini mic here because Detroit's 8-5. Alright, even last night, 7-5 before the Dallas game, and I just saw they had a 30% chance to make the playoffs. I guess that never really clicked, never really clocked in the brain last night when they were talking about it. The Lions had a 30% chance heading into that game to make the playoffs. It's crazy to me. Detroit's technically still on the outside looking in. You've got my Packers, you've got Seattle, and then I think San Francisco's got that last wild card spot. Now their odds are 45% chance. I feel, and I said this in our rapid reaction yesterday, I feel like 95% sure the Lions are going to make the playoffs. In fact, this is one of the more confident I have felt in the Lions team. As far as just like making the playoffs, they're making the playoffs. They'll probably win a playoff game. I'm hoping it's not against my Packers, but you know, if you want to get into specifics, I don't think the Bears are going to make the playoffs. Maybe if the Bears, there's like a whole bunch of different ways Detroit would come in there for the wild card spot. It doesn't look like they're going to win the NFC North, but I don't think the Bears are going to make the playoffs. If the Bears do make the playoffs, that means I think they take care of San Francisco. So I still think Detroit is pretty much a lock here, although statistics would tell you technically no. But the injuries suck, man. You know, the injuries are catastrophic. The Brian Branch injury, I've got the whole list here. Sorry, guys, I just sneezed like 30,000 times. Welcome back, or welcome to the channel. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. You guys know the deal. Hype it up if you're on mobile. Goes a very long way, apparently. We made a rapid reaction for the Lions victory last night. It was like midnight. Nobody really watched it. And I don't know, it's Friday. I like making these face videos on Friday. And let me know if you guys enjoy the style and flow of these, because I feel like it lets me get my take out in a more, I don't even know if like nuanced is the right word, but it's just, I don't know. I like being on the camera, I guess. That sounds selfish. You get what I mean. Lions fear safety Brian Branch suffered an Achilles injury. I believe the news just came out that he did suffer an Achilles injury and that he's done for the season. So if that's true, Brian Branch is done for the season. Terrion Arnold is done for the season. Kirby Joseph has missed the last 7 games. Hopefully he comes back. Whenever he does, he won't be 100%. DJ Reed missed 6 games from a hamstring injury. He just recently came back, and you know, he got picked on a couple of different plays last night against Dallas, but game officially clinching interception. DJ Reed, you know, he had some nice moments, even though he might have given up a couple of plays. The defense was really the big deal for me in this football game last night, but I want to talk about the Dan Campbell quote in the postgame. Excuse me, guys. I don't know what happened. I just sneezed. I sound so sick right now. All right, here we go. Nobody effing tells us who we are. Dan Campbell told his team in the locker room after the 44-30 win over the Cowboys. Nobody, man. We write our own story. So I made a Lions video about a week and a half ago. It was right before I went to Thanksgiving up in North Carolina. So I made a Packers video and a Lions video right before I left because it was Thursday and I wanted to cover both teams before that Thursday Thanksgiving matchup. And I was talking about the Detroit Lions. And I felt very confident in Detroit because not even necessarily for that Packers game. I kind of had a feeling the Packers were going to win that. I don't know, man. I think Green Bay's playing really good football. I think Jordan Love just looks good. I think the Packers are just a good team this season. I think that defense is something I haven't seen as a Packers fan in over 10 years. So I know this isn't a Packers video, but my point is, even though they lost in the game, I was still very confident in Detroit because I kind of like that they're the underdog. I like that they've got this chip on their shoulder, and Dan Campbell's such a great motivator. He's calling really good football games. Like Detroit averaged over 7 yards per play yesterday. That's kind of been on par for the average since Dan Campbell took over play calling. And I think he's done a really good job with schemes, personnel. You know, Sam Laporte is injured. What like your average NFL fan won't know is Sam Laporte is injured. People know that because of fantasy football. Tight end number 2 is injured. Brock Wright's hurt. Tight end number 3 is hurt. You're watching last night's Detroit Lions game, and you're Ross Dwelly, Anthony Fursker. I think they both had a catch for 5, 6, 7 yards, something like that. And you know, people know probably about the defensive injuries. They know about the coordinator's losses, but it's like you get into some of the specifics in these secondary injuries, it's almost as bad. Might even be, it's probably worse than it was last season at that particular position group. Then you start looking at like the guards, you start looking at the tight end injuries, Khalif Raymond's injury, Amon St. Brown wasn't fully healthy. It's truly insane. But like I was saying, in that 9-8 year where you guys officially turned it around, in Dan Campbell's second year, if I'm not mistaken, where you started like 1-6, 2-6, beat my Green Bay Packers, ended the year beating my Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers' last game as a Packer, and you finished 9-8, but you just barely missed the playoffs. So then the next year, the Lions win the NFC North for the first time since, like 1990-something, and they have this chip on their shoulder. Everyone's rooting for them, everyone's rooting for Detroit, and they lose in just BS fashion against San Francisco, and, they win a playoff game. And then last year go 15-2, have all these expectations, and they grow and they mount as every win passes. And then you finally get to the playoffs, and you have to play this just odd specimen of a quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and they lose it. So you enter this season with so much even more pressure because there's no Ben Johnson. There's no Aaron Glenn, and people are freaking out about the coordinator losses, and people are freaking out about Ragnow's retirement, and Kevin Zeitler's going to Tennessee, and they're losing pieces. And Dan Campbell said after the 2022 playoff loss, like, or 2023, this was our best shot. Hopefully we can get back here, because I don't know, we might have just lost our shot. And they start the season, and Detroit, first game against the Packers just don't look like the Packers. Or don't look like the Lions. So game 2, they blow out the Chicago Bears. And then they started to look like Detroit. But in the last month or so, you guys lost, 3 of your last 4 games heading into last night against Dallas. Detroit's starting to not look like Detroit anymore. So now you enter this Thursday night matchup. You have a 30% chance to make the playoffs heading into it. So you're already on the outside looking in. And then what ends up happening is if you lose that, your playoff odds drop to like 8%. So even though it's week 14 or week 13 or whatever week we are in the NFL, that's literally a must-win football game. And what do? They rise completely to the occasion, and they actually looked. I know the defense gave up 30 points, never felt like the game was in jeopardy. Dallas game script was blown out. It was like 20-9, 20-6 at halftime. Dallas had to throw the football. They had to score points. So that first half of Lions football, that's the team we've seen in the last few years. So backs up against the wall, it's pretty much win or go home. And even if you win, you still might not even get to the playoffs. So Detroit, the mentality for this team is you're on the outside looking in. And everyone's discounting Detroit. I got so many texts last night saying, I don't know if I believe, I kind of want to take Detroit at 3.5 or 3 or whatever the line was, but I don't know. They've looked so uncharacteristic. And that was just a really nice win, and it's why I still believe this Lions team is making the playoffs. And when we get into the playoffs, like, I don't even know what a potential game would be. Carolina or Tampa wins the NFC South. I don't think this would be the matchup. But they win the NFC South and they take on Detroit. Who's favored in that game? Who do you have more confidence in? Carolina or Tampa or the Detroit Lions? Detroit against the Chicago Bears. Detroit against Green Bay, who's beat them twice. The struggling offense of Philadelphia. I know they beat Detroit a couple of weeks ago, but whatever. Like, Los Angeles just lost to Carolina. So my point just is, all Detroit needs to do is win 3 of these next 4 football games, and you're in the playoffs. And I get it, the injuries, the tight end injuries. Miles Frazier looked good at guard. The defense back injuries, Brian Branch is catastrophic. It sucks. You're going to need guys like Al-Qadim Muhammad to have 3 sacks in a football game like he did last night. You just need these players to rise to the occasion. And I think this underdog mentality, this we're being overlooked mentality, people are already writing us off. I think that's what brings the Detroit Lions together, and that's how this whole thing got started, and I just like it. I don't know, this just feels the most like Lions football, where you're being overlooked, no one's really giving you the respect, and you're going to show them. You're going to show them why you got to give them respect. I mean, that Dallas team was red hot. My Packers tied to Dallas. Dallas is red hot, man. That was a really impressive victory. So that's it for today. I guess we just kind of rambled on about that Detroit game. Folks, once again, a like, hype, all that stuff, it goes a very long way. But let me know if you like this style of content. I love watching stuff like this, and I love making stuff like this. Stuff you can just kind of throw on your TV and, do some work, scroll on your phone, sit back, relax with a nice little Diet Coke or something and watch. So let me know if you enjoy it. And that's it for today. We'll make another Lions video probably Monday or Tuesday. So have a great weekend. Enjoy your victory. And let me know if you think the Lions are making the playoffs. Like I said, I'm like 95% sure, but let me know your thoughts. Peace.